I never imagined the day would come when my own son, my only child, would look me in the eyes with a coldness I didn't recognize and say the words that ripped my world apart. Mom, you need to leave. Today. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that the moment he pushed me out of that house, he awakened a part of me I had buried for years. And once awakened, I was unstoppable. I was stirring tea in the small kitchen, the same way I had done every morning for 20 years. The same blue mug, the same corner window, the same quiet prayer in my heart that today might be gentle. But when I turned, I saw my son standing in the doorway like a man who had already made up his mind. His jaw tight, his fists clenched, his eyes distant. "Sit down," he said. I felt the room tightened around me. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. I sat. My heartbeat wasn't steady anymore. "Mom," he began, "I've thought about this for a long time, and it's time for you to go." My spoon slipped from my hand. What? "You can't stay here anymore. It's my house now. I need space. My wife needs space, and honestly, you being here just makes everything harder." His words didn't sound like him. They sounded like someone else's, someone older, colder, crueler. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Because how do you respond when your own blood treats you like a burden? I looked at him, really looked, and my memories began to unspool like a film I didn't choose to watch. The nights I stayed awake when he had fever. The years I worked double shifts so he could finish university. The rent I paid when he couldn't find a job. The meals I cooked even when my hands trembled with exhaustion. And how many times had I whispered to myself, everything will feel worth it someday. He will understand someday. But someday never came. He only saw the woman in front of him, older, quieter, tired. Not the mother who had built her entire world around him. "Where will I go?" I finally asked, my voice breaking. "That's not my problem anymore. Not my problem. Not my problem." A sentence sharp enough to cut bone. I felt something inside me collapse, but I also felt something else rise. A strange, unfamiliar heat. The first spark of a fire I didn't know I still had. I packed my life into 2 bags. 2 bags after a lifetime of motherhood. Every step through the hallway felt like walking through a graveyard of memories. My son didn't help. He didn't even watch. He stayed on the sofa scrolling through his phone like I was a stranger renting a room, nothing more. When I reached the door, I turned around, waiting, hoping for him to call out, "Mom, I'm sorry," or "Don't go." But he didn't. He didn't even lift his head. I stepped out into the cold air, and the door clicked shut behind me with a finality that felt like a slap. For a long moment, I just stood there on the pavement, breath fogging in the winter air, holding everything I had left. And that's when I whispered to myself, if he doesn't need me, then maybe it's time I finally need myself. I walked away, slowly, quietly, but with every step, something inside me strengthened. He thought he had ended me, but all he had done was set me free. The street lights flickered as I walked, 2 bags digging into my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I had no home. No place where a warm light waited behind a familiar door. No room where my slippers sat under a bed that was mine. No voice calling my name. I ended up sitting on a bench near the bus station, the cold seeping into my bones. My fingers trembled as I held my phone, scrolling through contacts I had once considered family. My sister? We hadn't spoken properly in years. Old friends? They had their own lives now. My colleagues? I had left my job 2 years ago to help my son when his wife was expecting. Irony is cruel. I had given everything away so he could have more, and now he couldn't spare me a single room. A gust of wind hit my face, stinging like the truth I didn't want to admit. I was alone. I wrapped my coat tighter and whispered to myself, "Don't cry. Not tonight. Not for someone who never truly saw you." But a single tear still slid down my cheek. Not for him, for me. I found a small cafe still open at midnight. Warm lights, cinnamon in the air, the kind of place that almost made you forget your life had fallen apart. I ordered the cheapest tea they had and sat in the corner, hands wrapped around the warm cup, trying to steady myself. That's when someone noticed me. A woman around my age with tired but kind eyes approached my table. "Are you all right? You look lost." I tried to smile. Just a rough evening. But she didn't believe it. "Rough evenings don't put that look in someone's eyes," she said softly. "That look comes from something much deeper." Her honesty broke the last defense I had. Without telling her everything, I said, "My son asked me to leave the house today." She inhaled sharply, but not out of pity, out of understanding. "My daughter did the same to me," she whispered. And just like that, two strangers became mirrors. She sat with me for hours. We talked about ungrateful children, manipulative spouses, exhaustion, motherhood, loneliness, strength we never thought we had. When the cafe was closing, she placed her hand on mine. "You don't deserve what happened to you. And trust me, children always learn the truth. Eventually." Her words didn't solve everything, but they lit a small candle inside the darkness I had been carrying. Before leaving, she asked, "Where will you sleep tonight?" I hesitated. She saw it. She said, "Come with me. No woman should face a night like this alone." I didn't know it then, but this stranger would change the rest of my life. Her name was Margaret. She lived in a small but warm flat filled with books, plants, and photos of the life she had rebuilt for herself. She gave me tea, a blanket, and a guest room that smelled of lavender. When I lay down on the soft bed, a strange feeling washed over me. Not comfort, not yet, but safety, something I hadn't felt in years. As I stared at the ceiling, I realized something horrifying. I had stayed in my son's house not because I belonged there, but because I had forgotten how to belong anywhere else. For years, I had shrunk myself, my dreams, my voice, my needs, so he could stand tall. And yet, he still pushed me out. That night in Margaret's home, I made a silent promise to myself. I won't beg to be kept where I'm not wanted. I won't break myself just to fit into someone else's life. And I won't return, not until I decide the terms. For the first time, I let myself imagine a life where I wasn't simply someone's mother, a life where I mattered, even if only to myself. Morning sunlight spilled into the room, gentle and golden. I sat up slowly, realizing I had slept through the night, peacefully. When I walked into the kitchen, Margaret had already made breakfast. "You look better," she said. "I feel lighter," I admitted. She smiled knowingly. "Sometimes losing a home helps you find yourself." I didn't know where to begin rebuilding my life. I didn't have a job. I didn't have savings. I didn't have a plan. But I had something far more important, the first hint of strength returning to me. Margaret slid a notebook across the cable. She said, "Write down everything you want back. Then write down everything you'll never allow again." I stared at the blank pages. Then I started writing. And once the pen touched the paper, something unlocked inside me, a version of me that hadn't spoken in years. By the time I looked up, tears were rolling down my face, not from sadness, but from rediscovering the woman I had forgotten existed. And in that moment, I realized my son hadn't destroyed me. He had simply removed the last thing holding me back. 2 weeks passed. My days were now filled with coffee, fresh air, and a new routine. I had begun to feel stable with Margaret. But one morning, when I was standing on her balcony sipping tea, my phone screen lit up. A message from my son. "Mom, can we talk?" My hands trembled slightly. Not because I missed him, not because I wanted an apology, but because I finally felt strong enough not to need one. I placed the phone on the table. Margaret asked, "Are you ready to hear him?" I answered honestly, not yet. This time, he'll wait for my yes, just like I waited for years. That night, I took a deep breath and put my phone on silent. For the first time, my silence was power, not pain. 2 days later, Margaret and I were going to the grocery store when she asked, "Will you ever go back?" I thought about it for a long time. "Not to that house," I said calmly, "but I will talk to him. Not as a guilty mother, but as a woman who finally knows her worth." That night, I called my son. The moment he picked up, he burst into tears. "Mom, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have told you to leave." His voice shook. But I was steady. "Do you know," I said softly, "that the day I left your house was the day I remembered I had a life outside your needs?" He went silent. "You didn't just tell me to leave. You told me I was no longer needed. But I refuse to let that be true anymore." "Mom, please come back. I didn't mean it." "Maybe not, but you said it, and I heard you." His breathing grew heavy, as if he was finally realizing the weight of his own words. "Mom, I'll do anything. Please just come home." I exhaled. "I am home," I said gently, "where I'm respected, where I'm valued, where I'm not used." Silence. Not mine, his. He was tasting the very pain I had been drinking for years. 3 days later, the doorbell rang. Margaret opened the door, and it was him, my son, standing at the doorstep, eyes filled with shame, regret, and that fear. The kind that only appears when someone realizes you are no longer a guarantee in their life. "Mom, please." His voice was breaking. "Just talk to me." I slowly stepped in front of him. He froze. "About what?" I asked, looking him directly in the eyes. "For leaving, for how I treated you, for forgetting that you were the only person who ever truly loved me." His voice dropped lower. He stepped closer. "Mom, please come home. I need you." I shook my head. "No," I said softly, "but I will meet you. We will rebuild something, not because you demand it, but because I choose to." He cried a little. "Mom, I thought you'd stay quiet forever." I smiled faintly. "You were wrong," I said. My silence wasn't weakness. It was the calm before I finally chose myself. He fell to his knees, literally. "Please, don't give up on me. I'll change, I swear." Margaret quietly closed the door to give us privacy. I helped him stand. "I'm not giving up on you," I said softly, "but I am done shrinking myself to fit into your life." He nodded, tears falling. "Mom, what do I do now?" And for the first time in years, I didn't give him an answer. I simply said, "That's something you'll have to figure out, just like I'm figuring out my own life now." A month later, I had a small job, my own room in Margaret's flat, my own routine, my own mornings, and my own peace. My son still visited every Sunday, slowly, gently, respectfully. He apologized in ways that finally felt real. He was rebuilding, but on my timeline, not his. And sometimes, when I sip my morning tea by the window, I whisper to myself, "This is the woman I was meant to be." Not silent, not forgotten, not broken, but whole. The day he asked me to leave the house, I thought I had lost everything. I had no idea I was finally about to gain myself.